Welcome to another live at F5 Livecast. I'm your host, Tom Quiet, and we are back at it again with another amazing podcast. We've got a returning special guest. We are minutes away, essentially minutes away from a very important match with Everton. And I think that's kind of why I decided to do this podcast with you on this day. We got Jenny Colquitt. How's it going today?
Really good. How are you, Tom?
Hanging in there. I'm hanging in there. I just realized that there's a whole bunch of sporting events going on today. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm not getting off my couch all day. So you got this match, and then we got the Indy 500 happening at noon, which is a big racing event here. And then my White Sox play. So it's just like,
big day.
Craziness. Crazy. So
I love David.
Yeah. How are things going with you?
Good, yes. I've spent all morning completely clearing my garden, which it's great weather outside today here in the UK. So yeah, it's been a really nice morning of just, getting a bit of sun and kind of hoovering my grass, which is a weird thing to say, but I have that fake grass stuff, so like hoover it up.
Okay.
Really great. So yeah, I've had a really good morning. And it's bank holiday here as well, so it means I'm off tomorrow, which is just even better.
Nice. What do you, because we're also on a holiday. We have Memorial Day tomorrow for us. What is it for you? Or is it just
it's just one of the standard UK bank holidays.
Okay.
Yeah, so we get like 6 or something per year. This year we've had an extra one, so we had 3 in May this year, because of the coronation, the King's coronation. So
which that's really interesting how many. So I'm here in Texas. There was so many people that cared about the coronation that we had the TV station I work for. We had to stream it live at 2 a.m. or whatever it was here locally because so many people wanted to see the coronation and just kind of witness that. And then the same thing happened when the Queen had passed, like the funeral and all that stuff. I was like, really? I didn't expect Texas to be that into like what's going on across the pond.
It's crazy. It's strange because a lot of people here in the UK, it's kind of like a split country in whether people like, I guess, are for it or against it. I'm kind of in the middle. Like I'm not really overly for it, but not overly against it either. So yeah, it's interesting that a lot of people overseas are, and I think that's what I really like about it, that a lot of people overseas are really kind of honed in on it, and I find it really, really interesting. And yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, it's interesting. So you released an album back in February. Wow. Because I know we had talked about trying to get you on during when the album or the EP, when the EP dropped back in February, and you were getting ready to go on tour. All that stuff. You've been busy. So
I have. I finally kind of found myself with a little bit of not loads of time because I'm like straight back in the studio already. But yeah, I've found myself with a little bit of chill time, a bit of time to kind of do kind of usual human things that don't always involve music. So it's been really nice. That's why I like touring, because it's quite like full on, but then you kind of get a little bit of a break as opposed to more sort of weekly gigs or whatever, Yeah.
And now music, you're still working like a 9-to-5 job, right? Your music's not full time for you yet?
Not yet. I'm still working at that. And I'll work at it until it becomes my full time. Nice. Whether it ever does or not, it doesn't matter.
How do you kind of balance everything? Because I notice like it's you kind of go through streaks of like, it's just gauging off of Twitch where you're like consistently Twitch streaming and kind of fully in it, and then work seems to kind of take over for a minute, and then the music kind of seems to take over. How do you kind of balance everything?
I guess exactly like that. I find everything kind of ebbs and flows really nice. The only thing with Twitch is that I feel like you need to be really consistent with it. So, I guess like taking a month off the tour, even though, all right, it's not drastic. Your viewer figures don't go like hugely down. But I guess like sort of mentally being in that game of live streaming, you have to be in that zone, I think. Especially with Twitch, because it's so involved with everything in it and everything's constantly changing. I struggle to keep up with it all the time. But yeah, I really enjoy that, like my life at the moment of kind of the normality of a 9-to-5. and then, you know, family stuff as well as studio work and
Mhm.
live stream. And I'm constantly on the go, and that's kind of how I function.
Mhm.
Um, I'm not somebody who can be left with an awful lot of time.
Yeah.
You know, it's got its ups and downs. I wish I had more time for things like promotion and making videos. Like if I had loads of time, I'd have like a full blown YouTube channel, and I'd have like Instagram reels out every day and all of that. But they're the kinds of things that I guess like suffer from working a 9 to 5. But
Mhm.
it's just one of them things, and I'm not complaining.
Yeah, for sure. It's something that I've struggled with, just like the consistency of everything. Like I go through streaks, like with Twitch. I think had I start like when I started streaming the podcast back in 2020 during the pandemic, had I started on Twitch versus like going to Facebook or YouTube or wherever it was I started, I'd have been a lot more consistent and further along on Twitch.
Mm.
But now because I hit it so late in the process of doing podcasts and trying to do the podcast live again and not through Zoom, Twitch is kind of taking a back burner. And then there's sometimes where I go to like my 9 to 5 job and I'm so tired after I get back. It's like I don't want to do anything else. It's like I'm
Yeah.
good. So
It's a real mental game, I find. Like just I'm not on a streaming schedule at the minute for that
mm,
reason, because I feel like if I force myself to stream, it's just pointless and
mm,
a waste of a stream in a way. And you kind of want to have that balance. If you don't want to stream too much where people I don't want to bore people of the same things, but at the same
mm,
time, you know, you want to be consistent enough that people are like, oh, okay, here's like Jenny streaming. I'm excited to watch. It's a
yeah,
really fine balance I've found with Twitch, or live streaming just generally. Um, yeah, and like there's times where I'll get home from work and I'll have said like, oh, I'm going to stream tonight, and like a few hours later, I'm like exhausted, and I can't, and I just break through it. I'm just like, come on, guys, we'll work through it together, because
yeah.
you've got to work hard at, you know, there's like I can't remember who said it, but there's a quote of like, you never get anywhere in your comfort zone. You've got to you've got to become comfortable with being uncomfortable, and
Hmm.
that's definitely like the music industry or the entertainment industry is very much just being comfortable being uncomfortable and pushing the boundaries. And yeah, like sometimes you think, oh, I shouldn't have done that stream because I was too tired, and it might have come across. But my viewers are so like they're like a family. So
Hmm.
I guess like if I have a stream where I'm really tired, and they can tell, they never kind of go, oh, that was rubbish. You know, they've always, I think they know, you know, it's easy when I have a good stream. I'm just like, don't want to stop.
Yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, it's just I get where you're coming from. You just got to kind of push through it, and the struggle, the struggle is real to keep it consistent and just you know try and keep it high energy and stuff like that. But the one thing that I've noticed is it's obviously we're talking two different wavelengths because you do more performance and I do more just casual conversation, podcasting type stuff.
Mhm.
But for me, the one thing I've noticed now that I've kind of taken control back over my schedule of who I'm booking, when I'm booking, and because when I first started, it was like, oh, here's my schedule, what I have available. Y'all just kind of y'all just grab your dates and we'll make it work.
Mm.
And I found myself interviewing a lot of people that was like, oh, this isn't very exciting, or they were just doing it because their PR agent told them, like, hey, you have to do this. You have an album to promote, just like they're
Yeah.
there for the wrong reasons. And so
Yeah.
now I'm reaching out to people and asking, like, hey, do you want to do this? And we open up a conversation. And yeah, it's different. It's not quite as frequent, but the quality's a lot better. So,
Yeah, I think that's the thing with PR. That's really, you know, being somebody who does like, I don't do an awful lot of PR for my
mm,
albums or EPs. Like some people are like interview every day and pushing it on radio. And I think that's where I fall short a lot of the time, because that's the thing that slips for me when when I'm doing a new release. Quite often I just don't have that mental energy to put into PR because I'm
mm,
working and because I'm doing all of that. And, you know, I really, I wish I had that extra time, but I don't want to ever do interviews where it's like I'm just doing it just for the sake of just promoting it, you know, unless it's like one where it's like a big viewership or something where there's like going to be a lot of sales or
mm,
streams that come from it. But yeah, like I love like these kind of chats where it's not just about like promoting something, like, you know, it's about real people's talking. And I think that's why I like Twitch and like live streaming,
Yeah.
because even though it's like music, it's also chat, and you also kind of get to show a little bit yourself, and also get to know your audience. And yeah, I love podcasts as opposed to just kind of like 5-minute radio interviews, which just, yeah.
Yeah. And that's so we launched our radio show about 3 months ago. And originally the idea was I was just going to take these podcasts and cut them up. And the issue I was having was um they didn't flow right, because I was like, okay, we're like in the middle of a statement here. And so I had to start doing the short 5-10 minute interviews, which is fine. It's bringing in musicians that are further along in their career, like they're doing, and instead of doing like local tours, they're doing like regional tours, and they've got 100,000 followers on Spotify. You know, like they're just at a different point in their career, because it's not as much of a time constraint. It's like, okay, 10 minutes, I can do 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And which is really good, because it's like legitifying the podcast in general, because I release those interviews on the podcast stream and it's cool.
Mhm.
But like you said, just the different format that podcast brings as per the like radio interview, because it's like we got 10 minutes, we got to hit the points.
Yeah.
Here it's like this one specifically, we have a specific out time because we're trying to watch a football match, but you
Mhm.
know, just in general, it's like not quite as structured.
Yeah. Oh yeah. More of a, yeah, I'm not trying to promote anything at the minute.
Yeah, for
But, you
sure.
know, which, yeah, I'm not actually working with a PR agent at the moment. Just kind of loving making music again, and just being myself, as
Nice.
opposed to being like, you know, like this has got to be this. And I think I've done that. Like I did that, and obviously it works great,
Yeah.
but like it's nice just to sort of just be me. And even though I'm not really far on in my career, I feel like I am in some ways. You know, mentally, I'm quite far on in my career, and I'm kind of approaching an age. You know, so I just do what I want to do now.
Yeah, for sure. And so I know you're not promoting anything, but we talked about Lost Animals, which is your most recent EP. Did
Yeah.
you kind of find this clarity through the process of pushing Lost Animals, like the EP? Or is this something that this is a clarity of like just doing what you want to do, doing what you love, and finding the love of writing music? Is that something you've kind of always had?
I've always really loved writing music.
Mhm.
But in terms of the clarity of like how I want to do things, that's kind of
Yeah.
just not just from like the process of Lost Animals, but from the process of right the way through from Something Beautiful. I did Something Beautiful like very kind of strategically, and made sure that everything, you know, I had music videos. And but I kind of I've got to a point in my career where, you know, I'm not earning enough from music to kind of be able to put that amount in. But
Mhm.
I'm also like, there's enough people with that demand. So I'm in a bit of a difficult, I guess, situation really, because I'm trying to like crowd fund, but at the same time, I've not got like a huge following, you know, so there's enough demand, but there's not enough to kind of, I guess, like push it to that point again.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
with that, you know, you can do, I guess, two things. You can kind of go, right, I'm going to quit,
Yeah.
which a lot of people do, or you can just make music and enjoy it. And I
Yeah.
think that's what I'm gonna do. Um, and yeah, I'm don't get me wrong, like when I talk like this, I'm not saying I'm not taking music seriously anymore. I am
Mhm.
very much so. Like
Yeah.
in terms of like I'm touring, you know, I'm planning things. Yeah, I can't talk too much about like what I've got coming up
Yeah.
yet. But it's definitely all really exciting. And yeah, I'm taking it seriously, but I'm just letting the music flow and trying not to I guess try not to overthink it, because I go through like little periods of overthinking things. So yeah,
I
it's a
think
good.
everybody does. Like, just goes through the period of overthinking the process, the promotion, the project in general, just like overthinking everything. I think everybody kind of goes through that. And it's like once you kind of get to that moment of clarity, or whatever you want to call it, where it's like you're at peace with everything that happens, and it like essentially it is what it is. I think that's kind of where musicians really start to make their stride in their industry. Is like, I'm going to just be authentically who I am. This is what I want to do. People connect, they don't connect. It is what it is.
Yeah, and you know, I think that is so important, and something that, like, as an artist, it's something that we really do struggle with. I can go like up and down like that within a week. You
Hmm.
know, like I can one minute, you know, I'm working on a project and it'll be I don't want to talk too much, but
Yeah.
like it's kind of like you'll be working on something, let's say, and you think this isn't working, it's not
Mm.
clicking. Or you can even be working on a song in the studio, and one minute you're like, it's just not how I want the song to be. And like everything is like almost like just crashing down. And the next minute, just one thing changes everything. And you're just like, it's like a Rubik's Cube just clicking together and everything just goes shh. And it's so strange, like how it works mentally and, you know, kind of in your career as well. And it's really important for like people like yourself to say things like that. You just got to be authentic, and
Hmm.
that's something I've always struggled with. I think mainly because I've got a very different. A lot of my music is like different genres. I don't fit into a box in any
Mm.
way. I'm not a country artist. I'm not a folk artist. I'm not an indie artist. I'm not anything in, like, I guess particularly.
Hmm.
So for me, everything kind of feels a little bit chaotic. Um, but at the same time, like that is who I am. Like surely that's me who, like, you know, if I'm being authentic, that's what it is. Whatever
Mm.
I'm writing, that's the most authentic me. And you know, it's tricky to kind of market that sometimes, but at the same time, the viewers or the supporters, the fans I have, I think are really drawn into that, I hope.
Yeah.
um, and maybe that's the thing that I think gives me this real strong bond with my audience, because I'm all about being authentic. And don't get me wrong, I've conversations with myself and conversations even sometimes with my supporters of you know, feel like I should write this kind of song, and you know, I need something that's going to click this. And quite often they just go, just be you, just be Jenny. And it's you probably get this a lot with different artists, but it's a real thing. I think it's the main thing that stops people and makes people quit, because it's
Hmm.
so difficult to fit yourself into a box, especially when you like I say, like me, who's not got a specific genre. Yeah.
We get this conversation a lot, but it's never on record. It's like never during the podcast. Nobody ever wants to talk about this. It's always after the podcast. It's like,
Mm,
this is the conversation I want to have. Like, let's have this real conversation.
yeah.
Nobody ever wants to have it.
Oh,
So,
I'm all for it. You know, it's something that my career has been the most difficult challenge. When creating albums and EPs, it's like,
mm.
well, like, all right, I'll give you an example. So like at the minute, like the songs that I'm singing are like, you know, Without You, My Design, um, Dear Me. I've got some new songs as well, and none of them are like, oh, they fit together nicely into a nice little piece of work.
Yeah.
My Design and then Without You are like lyrically, musically, and vibe so different from each
Mm.
other. How do I like say that they're both from the same artist? But they are, you know, they're
Yeah.
both songs that I've written.
Yeah.
So it's about like deciding like how much you care about that, and that conversation I have with myself, like literally sometimes 3-4 times a week. You know, one minute I can be like, yeah, it doesn't matter, like they go together fine, and the next minute I'm like, oh my god, like
Yeah.
I'm talking about like demons and very archaic lyrics in one, and then the other I'm like talking about love and like loss, and you know,
Yeah.
it's just, I guess it's just who I am, you know.
Hey, it works though. Like I enjoy listening to all your music. Just go either whether it's on Spotify, Twitch, whatever. Twitch is a little bit interesting because I think you break out a little bit more of the unique covers that you do.
Yeah, yeah, I do
So
a lot of things.
so when I'm like recently, since I had the issue with my knee, I've been working remotely. And so whenever I get that notification, I'll just that you're streaming or a few other people are streaming. I'll just throw it on in the background. I won't say anything in chat. I'll just kind of be there and just,
Mhm.
just because you're working. Like, the one thing I forgot about the pandemic was working in silence is deafening.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, oh, what did I do during the pandemic that just kind of filled that void, because, whatever. And then I was just like, oh, I'm got a whole bunch of people I can follow on Twitch. So now when I get like your notification and there are a few other people, it is just like, okay, That's
Yeah.
how I do it. So
It's really cool to hear that because like sometimes because like as you know, like you're literally streaming to a camera. You're live streaming and sometimes you think like it's like so surreal.
yeah.
And then on the other side, there's so many people like I'm just looking at the comments now and there's so many people who just like love the music and they're so supportive and so nice and that's why you do it.
Yeah.
But it's like I did a gig last night in a pub, like literally like the same road that I live on.
Yeah.
Um, and I've not done pub gig for like so long because it's another mentally very exhausting and very challenging thing.
Yeah.
You go from like I've gone from gigging, doing things like Glastonbury and the tour that I've just done, and it's been so amazing. And you get like such great support and like standing ovations, people come up
Mm,
to you, and then you go into like a local pub and you think people would know me, and like no
mm,
one's got a clue because my career is online. I'm
hmm.
singing covers that I don't want to sing,
Yeah.
and you don't get any response, or you might get like somebody at the back going,
Yeah.
and but I'm making more money from that. You know,
Yeah.
it's a covers gig in a pub, and it's like and that is another thing that's so mentally challenging to kind of like it took so much energy for me to do that. Um and like even when I was on stage, I was like, I hate this,
Yeah.
what am I doing? And then like the next minute, like I'll get that message, do you want to do it again? And I'm like, yeah, let's do it again. I know I hate it, but I need the money and I need
Yeah.
that forward my
You,
career.
you got that check and it's like, huh, can I suffer through a 3 hour bar gig
Yeah.
for this money? I think I can, you know.
Yeah, and like honestly, like the first half, I was like almost crying. Like I was just like, "Oh, what am I doing?" And then in the second half, I think I was like, "I'm gonna have to get a half a pint of lager." So I just
Hmm.
got like a little bit of alcohol in the system, and I was like, "You can do it, Jen." And then the second half was a lot better, I think, because I didn't have that expectation. I was just like, you
Yeah.
know what? And you know what I did? Like I was trying to like sing upbeat covers because that's what you're
Yeah.
supposed to do in a pub. So I was doing that, and it just wasn't working. And then I decided, right, I'm gonna just sing some original songs.
Yeah.
So I did, and I think I sang a couple of Eli songs, and
Yeah.
they weren't like slow songs, but
Yeah.
like they weren't like the most upbeat. And people started listening,
Yeah.
and like a couple of people just kind of turned around. They were like, "Oh, she's doing something a bit different," and it was like, "Oh, okay." So I
Yeah.
did about 3 or 4 original songs in the second half, and it was good.
Yeah.
I
It's
messed
one of
up.
those. It's one of those things because like I have this conversation more frequently than I care to admit with musicians. They just kind of suffer through the bar gigs because they make existentially more money than they would playing their original music, going to like the pubs and whatnot. And it's just like there's nothing in there that says you have to play covers. You play covers because you're hoping it's a song that somebody's going to recognize and be like, "Oh, that's my jam," you know. And I
Yeah.
think that's why musicians kind of do that. But then if you sneak in an original every now and then, and
Mm.
people will start paying attention because it's like, "Oh, hey, I've never heard this song," you know, like it'll work. It's just you've got to be strategic with how you kind of lay out your song list and whatnot. So it,
Yeah, I learned a big lesson from that. Like I've not done a covers gig for ages, and there was actually a
mhm,
couple of covers that I like just messed up completely because I'd just not done it for so long. So I like kind of had to do a couple of originals as
yeah,
well. But like at the end of the night, everyone was kind of just like they might have enjoyed it a little bit, but wasn't crazy good. And I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna do a random song at the end. So there was like a couple of like young girls at the front who could tell were sort of enjoying it because they were filming, but
yeah,
they weren't like going crazy or anything.
yeah,
And I said, anyone like ABBA? And they were like, oh, ABBA. And so I was like, I'm gonna do the most depressing ABBA song because everyone wants you to do the upbeat one, and I'm just gonna like because I was like kind of annoyed at this point.
yeah.
I was like, I'm just gonna do Chickatita. So I did
That's fu-
Chickatita to end the set, and everyone was like, because I
that's
just
funny.
got quite powerful on that one, but it's so
Yeah.
funny.
I didn't know that there like ABBA was still that big of a. I didn't know that many people liked ABBA. Like for me, it was always you had like Dancing Queen, and that was just kind of like the song that came on every once in a while that people could stand. At least where I grew up. So
Oh no, everyone loves ABBA in the UK.
okay,
Not everyone, like it's like the same people who don't like Eurovision.
yeah. Speaking of
No.
Eurovision, I saw you were at the Village or the Eurovision Village or whatever.
Yeah, like, you know what? Like the whole thing with Eurovision, like I'm not like the biggest fan of like all the cheesy pop music,
Yeah.
but I just think the world is just so depressed, especially at
Yeah.
the minute. Like it's just Twitter is just angst and social media is just like everyone's just so sad. And the Eurovision is just so fun. And like I say, I'm not like the biggest like into big cheesy pop ballads, but
Hmm.
I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna make the most of it and enjoy it. And so I just like we did like a Eurovision party in the Discord, and
Mm.
a lot of it's just taking the mick and just like
Yeah.
having fun, and it doesn't matter. And I wasn't gonna go to Eurovision Village, but then
Mm.
I had like a conversation with myself. I was like, you know what? When does this ever happen in
Yeah.
literally the city like next to my hometown?
Yeah.
Like, when will this ever happen ever again in my life? Probably never. So I
Yeah.
was like, one day I was trying to convince Sai, so I kind of came in from work. I was like, Sai, should we go to the Eurovision Village tomorrow? It's the last day, it's a free event. And he was like, no way. So he was having none of it. So then I kind of was like, oh, I won't go then and whatever. And then I went into work the next day and I just sort of mentioned it in the office. I was like, oh, I really wanted to go to the Eurovision Village. And like one of the girls in work was like, let's go. So we like literally finished work, got on the bus because the trains were all
Yeah.
on strike because everyone's depressed and sad and striking and
Mm.
whatever. So we were like, we were gonna find a way. So we got the bus, which was like half price because it was
Yeah.
Eurovision week, and we just went and we queued for like an hour and a half to get in. But it was incredible, like the vibe and the energy, and I was so tired at the end of the night, but I was so glad that I went
Mm.
because like honestly, like and Liverpool is such a great city as well, and people very often forget. I think it gets a lot of bad press, and
Mm.
like maybe that's to do with the football, I don't know, or whatever, but there's a lot of like political um I don't know, angst against
Yeah.
Liverpool, and equally it kind of feels like it's its own thing, like us
Mm.
against the world kind of thing. But it was so nice that there was something so big happening in Liverpool, and like the buildings that it was like, because basically the Eurovision Village was kind of like on the docks,
Hmm.
got so many really, really gorgeous buildings that are like were all lit up, and it was just
Yeah.
like, you know what, such a beautiful scene. And Charlotte Church, you know Charlotte Church?
I'm not familiar. No.
So she in the UK, she is this singer that she started out like a choir singer in like did church music and operatic music.
Hmm.
And she kind of went she kind of did like a switch and went straight into pop music and went a bit kind of crazy and wacky. And like she's so talented.
Yes.
And she was like headlining this like event, and I wasn't like particularly excited to watch, but then when I went, it was Charlotte Church's Pop Dungeon. You should check it out. It's
That.
the final show of it.
Okay.
But she did like all covers, well, a couple of originals, but like mainly covers like pop music. And it was all like indie rock style and like grunge. It was so good.
Nice.
Like yeah, Destiny's Child Survivor, and she was like guitar solos like in the middle of it. It was just, and she had all of her backing singers did a song each, and they
Mm.
had their own moment, which I thought was really cool as well. It was honestly, it was such a great time. So
Nice. That's those kind of events where you go just because of what it is, not necessarily, and then you turn out to actually like enjoy it. That's
yeah,
always kind of an interesting turn of events when it kind of happens that way.
yeah,
Like most Americans, I'd never heard of Eurovision until Will Ferrell did his movie called Eurovision, and
yeah,
then it started popping up on internet and whatnot. And I get what you say. Like I think the reason I haven't watched like really paid attention to any of it was just the over thematics of all of it and just kind of like the kind of music that they're making. But I probably need to go back and at least watch some of it this year. So
I think it's just one of them things that like, you know, I did used to go through a phase of like, I guess like being that person of, you know, if something was really popular, I would automatically go, oh, I don't like that because it's really popular, you know.
yeah.
Like, and I went through that phase of that because I think there is a thing where people like if someone's really popular, like Ed Sheeran,
Hmm.
like there's so many people that don't like Ed Sheeran, but I think that's just because of how popular and how
Hmm.
world renowned he is, you know. So you naturally get this corner of people who are like, oh, I can't like that, you know.
Yeah.
And I've been that person before, but now I'm just like, you know what? Let's just celebrate everything that's great. You know,
Mhm. Yeah.
I'm at
I,
a point where it's just like, let's just enjoy it. Let's do
yeah.
it.
Yeah. Ed Sheeran's an interesting one because, like all his stuff before, what was it, Project Number 6? It was just kind of music that was there. Like I didn't feel one way or the other. And then Project Number 6 came out where he did like all the collabs with different musicians and stuff. I was like, oh, he's like a real musician. That's kind of when I started to understand that he was like a real musician.
Yeah.
And then he came out with his next album like mid-pandemic where it was like extremely overproduced pop music. And I'm like, oh no. And now he's got his new album out. And I'm like, oh, okay. So that was, yeah.
Yeah.
So I've definitely gone through ebb and flow with Ed Sheeran myself. So
Oh yeah. He's like I say, he's not one of those artists that I would like look forward to his next song.
mhm.
But I'm like so many people are like, oh, I can't like anything he does because it's him,
Yeah. Yeah.
But if he comes out with a good song, like his latest one's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'll just enjoy it.
Yeah. I'll be lying if I didn't say he wasn't on a Spotify playlist somewhere on my account.
That's
So
it. That's it.
yeah.
And I love like people like Taylor Swift.
Mhm.
I love like some of her newer stuff, and I think we just need to celebrate people who are successful. I think good on them. Like Ed Sheeran did something like 600 and something gigs like before he
Yeah.
got big, and you're just like, well done.
Yeah.
Well
Yeah.
done.
You brought up Eli, your band Eli.
Yeah.
How are things going with the band? I don't follow the band on Spotify, or maybe I don't even follow you all on Instagram now that I'm thinking about it. But how are things going with the band?
So we kind of went on a break when I
Mm,
started doing when I think I just released my solo album, which I always was doing as like equally as kind of I was at one point it was like
mm,
both were going full,
yeah.
and then I released the solo album and it kind of just like drifted off a little bit, probably because I was so busy and the guys were busy as well with different
Mm,
things. We've kind of just been on this like elongated break now, but we've still got two tracks unreleased. So whether we get back in the studio ever again, I don't know, but
mm.
maybe. Never say never. It's one of them
Gotcha.
things I don't think will ever like completely go away. Because the music, like the Eli stuff, the music
Mm,
with Eli, like it's like if I was to listen to any of my stuff, I love listening to the Eli stuff.
mm,
And also like it was a lot more simple with Eli because it was like a bit more of a genre. All right, it's not specifically like Americana rock, but
mhm.
it's more like in that direction, which
Yeah.
is like easy to pitch,
Mhm.
probably easy to get on playlists and radio. Um, and that was just something that was just kind of easy, and I didn't have to worry about with Eli. But yeah, it's definitely like my solo career is definitely kind of more at the forefront now
Mhm.
than the Eli stuff, which is a shame, but at the same time, it's just the way it went. I just kind of went with the flow with it, really.
Yeah. It's one of those things where Eli, like you guys didn't break up, or you're just kind of on a hiatus and it's never on bad terms. So you could always just kind of like come back together, or
Yeah,
like if
that's
you got
it,
an
yeah.
idea for a song, and it's just one of those bands that just it's kind of like I don't know if the some of the bands in the UK are doing this, but in the US there are some of these things that they call like super bands where like three different bands, like
Yeah.
members from three different bands will come together and form like a side project
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they release music. I kind of feel like that's what Eli might be for you.
Yeah, that could be the way. I like I say, I'm just kind of going with the flow, and I don't think it's one of them things that'll ever like completely go away.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's just not been my forefront the last, I guess, since the album. Really, the
Yeah.
album went really well for me as well, and I think it would have been silly for me to not kind of ride that wave.
Mhm.
And tour and do all of those things, which was difficult to kind of do with both. But I guess that was always going to be the case. When I was doing both things full, it was so hard. It was really difficult to kind of like just get some time to breathe.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah.
I'm still waiting on your America tour. The first time we had you on the podcast, that was a conversation that we had. I'm still waiting on that.
Oh, you know what? I would tour America if I could. If you didn't need like a visa to tour
Mhm.
America, I would be doing that. Like I'd be planning it. But
Yeah.
it's you have to have a visa. And in order to get a visa, you have to have a reason to get a visa. You know, it has to
Mhm.
be enough of a and that's not easy.
No.
Very difficult to get a visa to play in the States. And I'm probably not I think basically I'm not famous enough to do it. They're kind of like, are you sure?
Yeah.
You have
You
to
know,
like prove that you're like worthy.
yeah, it's that's always an interesting conversation because obviously, like international relationships and visas and all that stuff, it isn't my specialty of conversation or international law, so to speak. But when I see some artists come over and then they just go play and they're not even concerned about it, I'm like,
Mm,
man, that's like you're probably gonna be okay. Like
mm.
it's probably not gonna be that big of a deal. But if you
I
get caught, I've seen
be
some
banned out
things.
of America. You can literally
Yeah,
just be banned for life.
yeah.
And
It's
I definitely like me and Sai, we want to at one point in our lives, like this one of our things that we want to do on our bucket list is we want to drive Route 66.
okay.
Just stay in motels and do that like
Yeah.
whole American drive thing. I've never even been to America. Sai lived in America for a little bit. Um, but I've never even been. And it's like I feel so like even though I've never been to America, I feel like I'm like I've got like a really cool relationship because of the fans and the followers, and I've
Mhm.
met so many great people from America. I'm just like, why? I want to go to America so bad.
Yeah,
I wish I could just show up and just play.
yeah,
It's such a shame. But maybe one day, Tom. I'm not.
yes.
You know, maybe I'll be famous.
You're famous to me. So
Thank you very much.
um,
And ditto.
it's funny you brought up like the relationship that you have with people in America. I feel the exact same way because it's like I've had several outstanding offers like that whenever I make it to the UK, it's like, oh, we'll take you here or we'll take you there. And then the same thing
Yeah.
over in like Australia. I have like 3 couches I could sleep on, and I'm like,
Yeah.
sweet, I just need to get there. Like it's not
Yeah.
cheap by any stretch. So
Oh, I know. And we're not in a great time for economic growth, and I think we have
yeah,
to prioritize certain things in our lives, don't we? Which is
yeah.
such a shame. And I wish I had that um free willingness to kind of just go, right, you know what, I'm just gonna just go. I'm just gonna do
Mhm.
it. But I'm just not. I'm a home bird. And I've got my dogs as well, like who are
Yeah,
like my children. But yeah, I know it's gonna happen one day. I
yeah.
just know it, and I'm gonna like meet everybody and but I love the fact that like we have the internet and we can literally talk like this and live streaming always keeps people connected. Like I
Mm.
literally have more of a relationship with a lot of my followers than I do with like people who like live up the road from me.
Yeah, that's uh I'm not gonna lie. I saw you posted something on Instagram the other day. Was it one of your dog's birthdays or like when you and I
um
I thought you had gotten a new puppy. You had
oh,
posted something on Instagram and it was like when I don't remember if it was like Remy or whoever it was,
I think
but
it was Remy's 5 year since we had her.
yeah, you had just had like a bunch of little baby pup pictures, and I'm like, oh, did she get a third dog? She could. The two that she already has are pretty anxious, although they're not too bad right now, but they're going in and out of the door. So because I
Got the door open today because I'm not singing, so
uh
just have the door open and you can see how much more relaxed they are
yeah,
because like being kind of just in one area. But
yeah, it's
um,
they're dogs, they're animals.
yeah, I
So
wouldn't want to be just locked in a room
right.
with me
Yeah,
singing.
absolutely. So you just announced that you have a music festival coming up. What is it, June? Or that you're playing at a music festival?
I've got a couple of festivals coming up this year. I've
Okay.
got Beardy Folk on the 16th of June, which is a big one. I've got a couple of local festivals, Trips on the Hill on the 2nd of July, which is kind of close to me
Mhm.
in Frodsham. I've got another one in Frodsham called Gnarly Rocks on the 5th of August. Oh, I've just announced the big one, Cambridge Folk Festival on the
Mhm.
30th of July, which is like a pretty big festival here in the UK. So I'm really proud to be playing like the emerging act stage
Yeah.
this year.
Nice. That's really cool. I'm hoping like that's going to be my end to get to the UK to like not justify my reason to go to the UK, but
Yeah.
that's going to be my in is to get into a couple of music festivals and whatnot. And I've had a couple of opportunities. I would have been down in Portsmouth
Oh,
earlier this year, but then I had the whole issue with my knee, and I'm like, I don't know if I'll be able to walk by then. So
yeah, yeah, that was a shame. Yeah.
yeah, it was a. Then now I'm dealing with all the medical bills, and I'm like, America, I pay so much in insurance. Why are my bills so high? This is ridiculous. So
I don't know how you guys do it. That's like the big fear for me is like losing our NHS because we're so lucky in this country to
yeah,
just have access to free medical care, and people, I don't think people realize in this country just like how
yeah,
how lucky and fortunate we are, you know.
yeah. Like not to go too inside baseball, but like I'm sitting with 10 grand in medical debt right now. It's just
That-
like this is ridiculous. Like it's gonna take me 2 years to pay this off. It's so
I
and
feel
my dad's like, oh, here's how you get around that. And I'm like, okay, let's see how
yeah.
this works. So
Yeah, I honestly like that's the thing. We're just so lucky in this country to work. You know, and I work in a doctor's surgery and I
yeah.
know like how much people just take it for granted that we you know, it's that's its
Mhm.
whole over story. But yeah,
Yeah.
I feel for you.
I'm glad I didn't have to go in for surgery. I'd be scared to see how bad my medical bills were if I had to go in for surgery.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways, so we're getting close to the beginning of the match here. What are your predictions? What do you think is going to happen with the Everton match today?
I think Everton's gonna draw.
Okay.
I think Everton's gonna draw, and I think that Leicester will draw, and I think Leeds will get beat. And I think that that means that we will be okay.
That's that's fair. Like I think a draw is very possible. My only concern is that Pickford's been very streaky
So,
on yeah,
yeah, yeah,
he's been very streaky, and if he's on his game, doesn't let anything up, cool. Everton maybe could score a goal because
maybe.
you never know. Like the other, like the what are they playing? Bournemouth, right?
Should we look at the lineup? We don't know who the lineup is yet.
Oh,
Should we
hold
see?
on, man.
Let's have a look. Let's get
Uh,
Twitter up. I'll tell you if we're going to win based on the lineup.
well, because I mean, like the team they're playing against isn't playing for anything. They're just like in the middle of the field there.
Oh, Connor Cody's playing. That's good news because he's a bit of a leader. So it's Pickford, Tarkowski, Cody, Mina. So we're playing three at the back.
Mhm.
So three centre backs at the back, basically, which is, but we've got Connor Cody, and then we've got McNeil playing, which is good. Iwobi, Decore, Garner, Onana, and Gray up front. I think it's good. I think it's good. I think we're doing the best with what we've got.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Well, we were talking before we jumped on here about like me kind of getting more into the Premier League, and listening to like critics and analytics and like the sports stuff. It's interesting how many people don't like Iwobi. Like just
Um,
they,
yeah.
they pick on it. What do they pick on? His age, I think.
I think he's one of these players that when he's on his game, he's like
Hmm.
really on his game.
Yeah,
But when he's not, he can just be awful. But I think that's just all players, to be honest. But yeah, I like him. I think he's
yeah,
good. I
yeah.
get a little bit scared
Fair.
sometimes.
I think the thing that's going for Everton right now is the fact that Bournemouth really isn't playing for anything. They're not worried about getting relegated. They're not going to
Yeah.
make anything. So if they just kind of if they show up, that would be kind of shocking. But you know,
It could be one of them days, Tom. But
yeah,
you know what? Whatever
I,
happens, it happens, and I'm not getting too stressed.
yeah. There's still a lot of options out there. That's the way I'm looking at it. There's still a lot of options. It's like if they win, cool, that's it. But if they don't win, they're still up, and there's other two teams at play here. So like it's an interesting, going to be an interesting day. Let's say that. So
Yeah.
awesome. Well, if you want to, if anybody wants to check out your music, Lost Animals, or any of your shows or any of that fun stuff, where can people find you online?
Yeah, Instagram. So Jenny Colquitt obviously is my name. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I'm either Jenny.Colquitt or Jenny Colquitt. There's not many of me. In fact, I don't think there is any other Jenny Colquitt in the world. So yeah, just any of those places. Also my website, jennycolquitt.co.uk. On Twitch. I'm here on Twitch, Jenny.Colquitt on Twitch.
Awesome. All right. Let me see who we're going to raid. I don't usually raid because I don't know why, but that's just how it is. But since we're here, we're going to raid. Joshua Wu, that's one of your friends, right? Or
Oh yeah, Josh. Yeah, he's
yeah,
good.
or yeah, one. I think that's how I found it, was going through one of your streams. So
Ah,
cool. But once again, thank you so much for hanging out with us. It's been an absolute blast. It's anybody that wants to support Live and Amplified, liveandamplified.net is our website. You can find everything we ever do there. Our radio show, the Hoedown Showdown, is doing absolutely fantastic. Thank you to everybody that's been supporting that. We've been charting pretty consistently as far as on the global country radio charts. You know, it that's been really cool to kind of watch unfold. But until next time, we will see you later.